All right, so I got another great reminder here for you guys as to why it is vitally important for us to move towards nationalizing the pharmaceutical industry here in the United States. So a couple of days ago, Senator Bernard Sanders, using his new position on one of these top committee positions within the Senate, decided to have a conversation with the CEO of Moderna as to why they are deciding to dramatically jack up the price for COVID vaccines, given the fact that the American taxpayers footed the bill for a lot of the early research and development that went into getting this vaccine in the first place. So let's just go ahead and listen to this interview, and then I'll give you guys a little bit of follow-up afterwards.
It was announced that the federal government put money into Moderna. The stock prices soared. You became a multi-billionaire overnight. So it's hard for me not to believe that the federal government played a major role in the development of this drug. But here is the main point. I don't want to talk about what happened 3 years ago. We're here today. You're a multi-billionaire. Other people, top executives on your company are multi-billionaires, all developed as a result of the vaccine. And now we have a situation where you are proposing to quadruple the price of the vaccine once the government stockpile runs out. That will mean that not only, and we'll talk about later on the patient assistance program, but in terms of government, in terms of Medicare, Medicaid, other government agencies, taxpayers are going to have to spend substantially more money. My question to you is, given the fact that you have made billions of dollars, that your company has made huge profits, on behalf of the taxpayers of this country, will you reconsider your decision to quadruple the price of the vaccine?
So, Chairman Sanders, what we have to do is to deal with the complexity I described, and I'm happy to go into more detail for this hearing. This is not the same product. We used to have 10 doses in each vial. Now we're going to have every vial will have a different dose. This is not the same.
I understand it, but quadrupling the price is huge, and I would hope very much that you will reconsider that decision. It's going to cost the taxpayers of this country billions of dollars. Is that something you can do?
The volume we had during the pandemic gave us economies of scale we won't have anymore. That is what is different.
Okay, so there's a lot to get into there. Number one, the thing that he was just saying at the end, we don't have the same economies of scale as we did towards the beginning of the pandemic, so we have absolutely no choice but to jack up the price by 4 times, okay, a 4x multiplier, jacking up the price so that we can continue to maintain the same semblance of profits that are rolling in for our wealthy Wall Street shareholders. And of course, Bernie pointed out the fact that not only this guy, but 8 other billionaires as well as that man, the CEO of Moderna, have been created throughout this pandemic, which is in and of itself grotesque. I mean, obviously there's so many other consequences, especially for, poorer countries around the world not getting adequate access to the vaccine. Who knows how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of people died unnecessary deaths because we decided to protect the profit margins of these wealthy multinational pharmaceutical countries or companies at the expense of some of these poorer countries. But that's just another conversational part of this. The thing that he was talking about at the end there is essentially we do not want to take a haircut on our profits, right? He's talking about we don't have the same economies of scale as we did closer towards the beginning of the pandemic when, many more people were going out and getting their first couple of vaccines. Now we're sort of trailing off. People are losing a little bit of interest, or they're getting a little bit of tired of having to get booster after booster after booster. So less people are getting it. In order to keep maintaining their profit margins, we got to jack up the price for the people who are continuing to get it. And keep in mind, a lot of people choose not to get, these extra booster shots for whatever reason, but a lot of other people kind of need to get these booster shots because they may have some other health, associated consequences from getting COVID that they need to look out for themselves. So you are deciding to basically price gouge and screw over not only those individual people and the amount they're going to have to pay out of pocket for these vaccines, but then you're also basically double charging or double tapping up on the American taxpayer because, first of all, we funded a lot of the initial research and development that went in to developing this vaccine. I'll give you a little bit more information on that here in a minute, actual specifics in terms of what exactly the National Institutes of Health contributed to this vaccine. But you're not only, screwing us over in the sense that you took that publicly funded research and then privatized it and are now price gouging us, but then you're also price gouging these social programs like Medicare there that are covering some of the costs for people to get these vaccines. So you're price gouging us on the research and development side, then you're also price gouging us on the on the back end in terms of some of these programs to deliver the actual vaccines that we fucking paid for already. I mean, it's like one of the most absurd surface level scams you could possibly imagine. And that we haven't even got into, the other parts of this where we have politicians and essentially the entirety of our political system outside of a handful of politicians like Bernie, who are basically just entirely corrupted by these pharmaceutical companies who dump millions and millions and millions of dollars into lobbyists and campaign contributions to bribe these politicians to continue allowing these companies to do exactly what they are doing. So it's just a massive corrupt circle jerk that's going on here. But a little bit more information in terms of, what exactly would be one of the solutions to this and how exactly the NIH played a significant role in developing the underlying research and the actual research that went directly into getting these mRNA vaccines. So here from Health Affairs, they say President Biden already has the COVID vaccine recipe. He should share it. Okay, so what are they talking about here? They say step-by-step instructions for anybody in the Biden administration that wants this. They say the U.S. government is uniquely positioned to step in. As Public Citizen showed in a recent report authored by one of us, ZR, the Department of Health and Human Services holds detailed information on how Moderna makes the coronavirus vaccine, including the exact amounts of every ingredient in each vial and step-by-step instructions on manufacturing and testing. In other words, the U.S. government possesses the recipe for Moderna's vaccine. We believe the U.S. government also has legal authority to disclose the information to whomever it pleases. That means that Biden could share this valuable information with the World Health Organization, which has asked for it and then was denied, and with vaccine manufacturers with whom HHS chooses to partner. They say, how did HHS come to hold vital information on Moderna's vaccine recipe and have the legal right to share it? This is the important part here. HHS invested more than $1 billion in the development of Moderna's vaccine. Okay, they even called it the NIH Moderna vaccine, okay, because of the significant role that the NIH played in this as well. But they say also its scientists were involved at every step of the way. One of HHS's constituent agencies, the NIH, co-invented the vaccine with Moderna. HHS paid for all and ran many of the clinical trials that proved that the vaccine is safe and effective. And HHS funded Moderna's scale-up and scale-out of manufacturing. So basically everything, okay? And they say, as Monsef, the former head of Operation Warp Speed, which was the program to get all of these vaccines made super quickly, said last year, HHS held Moderna by the hand on a daily basis throughout the entire process. Held Moderna by the hand on a daily basis. And now we are resorting to having a handful of politicians like Bernard Sanders who are actually willing to confront them to their face. I mean, what are the rest of these senators doing? What are the rest of our elected government officials doing? Instead of serving the American people, serving the rest of the world, no, they're serving these pharmaceutical companies and protecting their bottom line at our expense, when what they could have done is actually just share the recipe with a bunch of other, factories and development centers around the world in order to get this mass produced at scale. Maybe you would have had to take a hit on the profit margins of companies like Moderna and Pfizer and the rest of them, but you would have saved a lot of lives and you would have saved a lot of money for average working class people. But instead, we're choosing to just let them run all over us, okay? And so, in addition to that, I wanted to make this argument as well, because this is something that is brought up, in pushback to not just pharmaceuticals or the pharmaceutical industry, but across the board as a defense for capitalism when a lot of these companies are basically just price gouging us. So conservatives, right-wingers, neoliberals, they'll turn around and they'll say, maybe these CEOs are a little bit greedy or whatever, but, at the end of the day, we still need them to do the research and development. We need them to be able to spend that money, take those big risks, and get this massive profit so that they can continue innovating, right? To continue with the massive innovation, right? First of all, okay, at a fundamental level, the CEOs, like the guy we just watched in that clip, do you really believe that they are doing any innovation whatsoever? No, they are a faceless void of a person, okay, who is sitting in this top key position with one purpose, and that is to extract as much value out of this industry and out of the pockets of the American people as possible. That is their only goal, okay? The executive class, the CEOs, the shareholders, that's all they care about is the bottom line, the profit motive, okay? They are not doing any of the research and development. That would be being done by scientists, by medical professionals, and you know who else can and does fund research for scientists and medical professionals to conduct? the government, okay, including, again, specifically with this Moderna vaccine. These companies are spending, at least according to this Yahoo News article here and many other sources as well, at least as much, if not more, on stock buybacks, which should be illegal in the first place. It's just stock manipulation to enrich their shareholders. They are spending as much, if not more, on stock buybacks than they are on research and development. Okay, so what does that tell you? It tells you they're not even efficient at this so-called innovation that people claim that they are solely responsible for, or that capitalism is not responsible for. This is a perfect case study example to understand the reality that in many, if not all instances, capitalism is not driving innovation. The profit motive is not driving innovation. If anything, especially in a case like this, it is stifling innovation because you have to make these massive multi-billion-dollar payouts to your wealthy Wall Street shareholders instead of spending that on actual research and development. So it just completely eviscerates that main argument that a lot of right-wingers use to push back against this. Now, again, just as a reminder, it's not just in the pharmaceutical industry, or it's not just specifically with the COVID vaccines within the pharmaceutical industry. It's across the board. Okay, so according to the New Economic Thinking here, they say U.S. tax dollars funded every new pharmaceutical drug in the last decade that was approved by the FDA. Every single one of them, the government had at least to some degree a role in developing the underlying research and development for a lot of these medicines that get approved. So this is an industry-wide thing, okay? This is a very simple equation of what is going on here. You have the government funding a lot of the grunt work, funding a lot of the underlying research and development. You have private corporations who step in. They privatize that. They privatize the medicines. They patent the medicines, and then they turn around and they jack up the prices and they price gouge the American people and the people of the world in order to pad their bottom lines. That's all that this is doing. That is the only reason why these pharmaceutical companies exist. They do not care about innovating or saving lives or anything like that. All they care about is their bottom line. Okay, and so these are the kinds of results that you get from that. Here from the Rand Corporation. Prescription drug prices in the United States are at least 2.56 times those in other comparable countries. 2.56 times. Okay, so this is a result, again, of having a largely profit-driven medical and health-centered approach here in the United States. I mean, this is the consequence, right? I mean, obviously this goes for like gigantic health insurance companies as well. It goes for many other industries as well, but this is what happens. And this is something that is, again, unique to the United States. So that's why it makes it that much more ironic when he says at the beginning of that clip that, oh, Senator Sanders, you just don't understand the complexity that goes behind this. And look, instead of using the same exact recipe that we had at the beginning of the pandemic, now it's slightly different and we're going to have slightly different dosages. First of all, from the jump, okay, it was costing them roughly around $2 to $3 for each vial that they were producing for these vaccines. They were charging us for those same vials that cost them just a couple bucks to make around like 20 to 30, okay? So you're already price gouging us at the beginning. Now you want to multiply that by 4. What are you trying to imply there, okay, by this so-called financial complexity of the current situation that Moderna is experiencing? Are you trying to imply that your costs for manufacturing this and distributing these drugs went up by like a factor of 50? Is that the claim that's being made here? Does it cost you, $50 a vial to manufacture this, and so you have to raise it by another 30 bucks to make some sort of a prop? No. I mean, it's a complete fucking scam, top to bottom. And unfortunately, we only have a couple of politicians like Bernie Sanders in our, entire body of elected officials who are even willing to have this conversation, let alone do something about it, let alone even begin the process of theoretically thinking about having a conversation about nationalizing this industry. But this is why I make the case, right? Obviously, I did that recent interview with Kerry on how we could nationalize the rail industry as well here in the United States. I think this goes for transportation. I think it goes for housing. I think it goes for anything having to do with our healthcare system. I think it has to do with a whole bunch of other tangential industries like our energy industry as well, where we have massive multinational fossil fuel corporations who price gouge the American people for gas while seeing skyrocketing massive profits. Again, I mean, this is just across the board a fundamental problem with allowing capitalism to dominate our entire society from the ground level. Okay, so that's the solution here, okay? You nationalize the industry. If you can't nationalize the industry, at least take control, as they were arguing in this article here that I'll link down below in the description. At least take control of some of the vaccines that we have march-in rights on and that the U.S. federal government could do something about, okay, that's the like bare minimum you could possibly expect. But again, unfortunately, we're probably not going to see anything major developing on this issue as long as we continue to have a political system where these same, pharmaceutical companies that are price gouging the American people can turn around and simply buy our politicians as well.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying